Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. Thanks for joining us on this quick little lesson on 3 types of blues that you need to know. Hey, if you're a guitar player, you are going to run across a bandstand sometime where a guy's going to turn around and say, hey, let's do this kind of blues. And there's basically 3 types of blues that you need to know. And that's what we're going to be covering in this lesson. We're going to be talking about the 12-bar basic blues chord progression. We're going to be talking about a jazz blues chord progression. And we're going to be talking about a minor blues. Now, there's a PDF that goes along with this, so make sure and download that before we get started. So that's right there in front of you. The link is in the YouTube description down below. All right. Hey, if you're a guitar player, you're going to need to know these 3 types of blues. I wish I could say I learned these out of a book. I didn't. I learned these on the bandstand. These are real working examples of what a blues form. Now, there's a lot of variation. Tons of songs are going to be a little bit of variation, but this is the foundation. This is the foundation of what the blues progression is and what it is in these 3 different forms of it. And then each individual song may have a little bit of a different twist on it, but here's the basics of it. Okay, if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get started. Take a look at the first page of this, of your PDF. We're going to talk first about the 12-bar basic blues chord progression. It's a chord progression that, unlike others that are 8 and 16 and 32 bars in a phrase, a blues progression is a 12-measure progression. That's the first thing that kind of makes it unique. And it uses basically 3 chords, the 1, the 4, and the 5 chord in any key. So if I was in the key of C, it would be the C chord, the F chord, and the G. And those would be the 3 that we would be using for this blues progression. All right, so take a look at the first example now. Here is at the bottom of page 1, this is the shape. I did it in Roman numerals, just so that's how we kind of notate theoretical concepts. We'll put it into a key here in just a second, but here's the basic progression. Now again, don't fuss at me. There's a million variations. We can do 3 different shows on 100 different variations of the blues. This is just the basic progression. Okay, so let's take a look at the first 12 bars. So the first bar of our 12 bars is going to be a C chord. The second bar can go to an F, or sometimes it just stays right through C, or through the 1 chord through all of that, and then back to the 1 chord. Okay, take a look at the measure 5, the second line. There's 3 parts to a blues. The first 4 bars, second 4 bars, and last 4 bars. First 4 bars is generally just 1 chord. Sometimes it goes between the 1 and the 4, and then 2 bars of 1. Then we get to the 4 chord in measure 5. If we're on that in key of C, that would be an F. We do that for 2 bars. Then back to C. Then in the 9th bar, we hit the G. That's the 5 chord in the key of C. And then we go down to the 4. Goes down to the F there in the second measure of the last line. And then we go back to the 1 chord. In the key of C, that would be a C. And then there's this little bar at the end that, if I want to flip it around, which usually you do, you're going to want to flip back to the top of the progression. It's going to be a little G7, a little dominant chord, a little 5 chord in that key to get you back to the 1 chord. So there it is. That's the 12-bar pattern right there. If I put it into the key of C, flip over the page. If I put it into the key of C, top of page 2, there it is in the key of C. So if I had a C, an F, if I just got it going. In fact, we've got a track that goes along with it. I'll play it through a couple times. We'll just do the chords. A 1, 2, C first. F, C. There's the F chord. Can you hear it going down? Back to the C chord. G chord, 5. 5 to turn it around again. Just listen how these chords are changing. That's the basic progression. Now, here's the deal. Don't bother calling yourself a guitar player if you haven't memorized that progression. That progression alone is so much of modern music that you need to have that progression memorized in really any key if you're going to be serious about taking your guitar playing seriously. So I wish I could say that, oh yeah, don't worry about it. No, blues is kind of the main progression that you're going to play an awful lot of. It's great to have that in your back pocket, memorized. So take 5 minutes after this is over, memorize that 12 chord or 12 bar 3-chord progression and how that goes, and then start running it around in different keys. How I would practice that, I would do it in C first, and then I might go to the key of G, a fifth up, and I do it in G. So if I did it in G, it'd be G, the 4 chord would be a C, back to G. There's the 4 chord. 5, 1, and then I would go maybe to the key of D. And you just work your way through these various keys. I like doing things not in a chromatic fashion when I'm practicing, but I like going in the circle of fifths. To where I'm going from the key of C to the key of G to the key of D, and you work your way around that way, or you can go the other way. Key of C, key of F, key of B flat, and work in the circle of fourths the other way. So that's a good way to practice this progression. So that's the first order of business. If you're a guitar player, try and memorize that form. That is the 12-bar basic form that you're going to hear in a gazillion different songs. Okay? Take a look at the next one. Now, if you're in more of a jazz genre, you're going to hear a slightly different variation of the blues progression. And so let's take a look at the next progression on page 2, which is the jazz blues progression. And let's see what's going on here. All right, first of all, you'll notice I put sevenths on all of the chords there, just to kind of, in jazz, it's all about the color tones, sevenths, ninths, 13ths, things like that. So I added just sevenths to all of that, just to make it sound a little bit more jazzy. Now, let me also mention this. Sometimes you'll see, instead of a C7, it'll say a C13th or C9th. Instead of an F, it'll say an F9. Oh, is that a different chord? No. What you're paying attention to is the relationships of the chord. So don't pay attention to all the embellishments, the ornamentations that are on the chord. You're looking at the foundation functional part of the chord, the C, the F, the G, and how that relates in the key of C. You know, one of the things we're going to talk about here at the end is where am I getting these 1, 4, and 5 chords from? There's a major scale pattern of chords that's true in any key. The 1, the 4, and the 5 are major. The 2, the chord built off the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 6th are minor, and the 7th is a half diminished chord. So we're going to talk about that at the end, but that's where these 1, 4s, and 5s are coming from. So let's take a look at the jazz blues and hear how that is different. So let me just play it for you first. Well, let me talk it to you first. We've got a 1 chord, then we go to the 4, 7, then back to the 1. So that's pretty much similar to the basic blues. Then we goes to measure 5 to the 4 chord, or it could be a 4, 7. And then look what happens in measure 6, a sharp 4 diminished. And then we go back to the 1. So that's where it changes a little bit from the other chords. In the basic blues, it stays on measures 5 and 6, the 4 chord for 2 bars, an F for 2 bars if I was in the key of C. In this one, I do a F, the 4. I add that diminished. And don't think of that diminished as a different chord. That diminished is it's really just a variation of the 4 chord. You'll see this a lot. 4 chords can have some different variations, the minor 4 and the sharp 4 diminished. This is just one of the variations of it. So it's really kind of still in the 4 ballpark. And then look at that in measure 10. We go back to C7, if I was in the key of C, and then I work my way down in half steps. 2 beats each for that, and then I go to the D minor 7th, the 2 minor, and then the 5, the G7, and then back to the C, the 1. Okay? Now, what's happening in that walk down? Well, that 6, 7, that last chord of that second line. Well, Steve, a 6, that should be a minor, shouldn't it? Well, yeah, but remember that any chord can be approached by its 5. So what's the chord that it's going to? First chord of measure 9 is D minor. D. Well, what is the 5? If I wanted to get to a D, I would need to get on the dominant of the D, which is the 5 of the D. Well, what's the 5 of D? A. 7. I'm A major. So I'm just working my way down. C, B, B flat, A 7th, which is now the functioning as the 5 of the upcoming 2 minor that we're going to. Back to the C, and then the 1. Okay, so we're going to turn on track, and we're going to play that one. I want you to just hear how that is slightly different. We're going to be playing the progression that's at the top of page 3. Okay, so now we've just put it in the key of C. All right, so here's kind of a jazz take on the blues. Ready to go. One more time. Maybe I can do a little chunking like Freddie Green. Different take on a 12-bar blues pattern. Now, if this isn't just a variation, this is an important one. Hey, I played jazz for years. I don't think I, more than just a handful of times, ever played anything but that blues, that progression right there, the jazz blues. In fact, that was the first blues progression that I learned. Not the basic, but I learned this jazz one first. So that's another one that you need to have under your belt as a guitarist to be able to pull out at any time, is that jazz blues. And it's not just a jazz genre thing, it's a type of blues that you are going to run into quite a bit. So there's the 12-bar basic blues we've covered. We've talked about the jazz blues with its chromatic going down to that 2 minor instead of what would be a 5 in the basic blues. In the jazz blues, I'd go to a 5 here, where that's a 4 in the basic blues. So there's some key differences there. Then after that, in jazz, we have what's called a turnaround, and that's usually the last 2 bars of any progression, and that's going to turn you around back over to the beginning of the song or the progression or whatever. Now in this one, I just had a C and a G7 for the turnaround. But in jazz, hey man, it would go crazy. We've talked about turnarounds before. So after the D minor, G7, then I might throw a jazz turnaround. Oh my goodness, we've got Alberto Lombardi in the house. Come on, man. We've got royalty in the house tonight. So that's a little bit of example of what a jazz blues would sound at. And those turnarounds, we've talked a little bit about turnarounds. You can just do a YouTube search and find the lesson that we did on turnarounds and all the many creative ways that you can get around, just getting in and out of keys. Great stuff. Hey, take a look at the third one. Now this one we really haven't talked very much about, but I wanted to introduce this concept to you of the minor blues, okay? Quite often in songs like, The Thrill Is Gone, Long Train Running, you're going to get into a minor blues sort of a setup. So what's the deal with that? I'm going to tell you what it is first, and then I'm going to explain what it is. Okay, so I'm going to just tell it to you. Just trust me, and then I'll explain it. Okay, so here's what a minor blues is. So basically, I take the 1, 4, and 5 chords are still the chords that we're going to be dealing with. But in a minor blues, of course, the 1 now turns minor. So instead of, if we were in the key of C, a C major, I would do C minor. And then I would do it for usually 4 bars straight, the minor 1. And then I would go to the 4 chord, but in minor, it's going to be 4 minor. So I would be going, if I was doing kind of a minor blues, then I would go to the 4 minor, which would be an F minor. Back to the 1 minor 1. Now here in measure 9, I would go to a flatted 6, but it would be major. In the key of C, that would be an A flat. Then to the dominant 7th, 5, the G7, and then back to the minor. Let me play that for you again. Minor. Back to 1. Now the flatted 6 major. Hear how striking that sounds? All right, there you go. That's a minor blues, a very different sound. So if I was in the key of C major, now I just played it in C minor, but let's think of it in a different way. If I was in the key of C major, what is the relative minor of the key of C major? The relative minor would be A minor. Okay, you go up, either up 6 steps, C, D, E, F, G, A, or down 2. Okay, so the key of C major and A minor are related. They have the same key signature. So in the key of A minor, I don't have any sharps or flats. In the key of C, I don't have any sharps or flats. So do you see we get 2 for the price of 1. We get a major key and a minor key. All right, so flip the page. Now we're on page 4. And so now I'm going to show you the progression in A minor. Okay, so this is A minor. And look, we have 4 bars of the minor 1, 2 bars of the minor 4, back to 2 bars of the minor 1. Then I have this flatted 6th. Now, that you'll hear sometimes that could be a major 7th, sometimes that could be a dominant 7th. Don't let any of that throw you. Those are all just embellishments, okay? Then it goes to the 5 in the key of A minor, which would be an E7. And again, that can have a bunch of ornamentation on it too. And an E7 sharp 9, E7 flat 9, whatever, before we get back to that A minor. So we're going to throw in put the track on. This would be the minor blues track, and let me just kind of play it for you so you can kind of get it in your ear. We're going to be in A minor. 2, 3, 4. Okay, there you go. So that's the minor progression. To see how it still sounds like the blues, but it's minor. And actually, I like the minor blues. It's a lot more richer in its sound and its texture and the things that you can play around with. You can vary in it. So I listen to all kinds of songs today, some Albert King, some B.B. King, and so many different variations of what you could do with the minor blues. Here's another one. Long train running. A minor blues. Okay, bet you guys didn't even know that was a minor blues, and there it is. Just going to be up in the key of G minor for that. Okay, so let me get you back in the key of A minor here for a second. Take a look at the next little example down there. We've got this is in the middle of page 4. I just thought I would give you show you how this can vary. So in this particular example, I've got A minor 7th, and then I go to a D minor 7th, so I kind of go to the 4 minor on that second bar. Back to the A minor 7th. And then look at this A7. What's happening right there 2 beats before that D minor? That's the 5 of the upcoming D minor. So yes, it goes from minor to major. Here's the D minor. What is that? That's the E7 sharp 9. That's the 5, embellished 5, heading to that A minor. There's the F major 7, 6, the flatted 6 major. Oh, that was fun. Let me do it again. So hey, we're getting some funky material there. That's just a little variations, little add-ons, little ornamentations in the chords and how I'm getting back and forth with these things to create some different sounds and tones. So I just kind of want to show you how you could vary that up. All right, so let me now, hang on to your hats for a second. That's what the minor blues is. 1 minor for 4 bars, 4 minor for 2 bars, back to 1 minor for 2 bars, then you have the flatted 6th, and then you have the 5/7, and you go back to the 1 minor. That's the minor blues, okay? In most that's kind of the basic form of it. But in minor, you can go so many different directions. All right. Where did I come up with flatted 6? What are you talking about, Steve? Flatted 6 and all that sort of stuff. All right, just hang on to your hats for a second, and let's take a deep dive into some music theory, and let me show you how major chord progression relationships coordinate with minor chord progression. So let's go on a journey, shall we? Let's take a little bit of a journey. Come with me as we look at the bottom of page 4. All right. So here's the deal. If I'm in C major, it's true in any key, in any major key, I have a certain pattern of chords. The chord built off of the first step of the scale is a 1 major. The chord built off of the second step of the scale ends up being minor. The chord built off of the third step of the scale is minor. The chord built off of the fourth step of the scale is major, indicated by the uppercase Roman numeral. The chord built off of the fifth step of the scale is major. The chord built off of the sixth step of the scale is minor. The odd little chord built off of the seventh step of the scale is a minor 7 flat 5, or in the biz we call that a half diminished. Okay, so that pattern of chords, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, half diminished, major, that that pattern of chords is true in any key. That's why when you're playing songs in the key of C, you're going to see a lot of C majors and F majors. You're not going to see F minors in the key of C. Okay? You're going to see a lot of D minors and E minors and A minors, but you're not going to see very many E7s in the key of C. That's because in any key, the pattern of notes is built off of the major scale. The pattern of chords is 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, 7 half diminished. Okay? There you go. That's the pattern. Wrote it right out there. Now, hey, let's shift to minor, shall we? Remember that the key of C and the key of A minor are kind of sister, two sides of the same coin, okay? So, you know, a scale, that's a C major scale. Well, it actually is not just those notes. It's a pattern of notes that goes in all directions. Okay, so it kind of goes, it's like a number line. It goes in both directions. And we're just looking at that C major part of it as just one little section of that scale. Well, if I go down 2 steps, okay, if I go down 2 steps, I get to an A minor. And now instead of going from C to shining C on a C major scale, I'm going from A to A, and I get what's called a minor scale. Okay, one of a couple of different minor scales, but that's the natural minor scale. And you see what I'm doing? I'm going from A to A, but I'm in the key of C because they share a key signature. All right, well, what if we built up our chords just like we did just like we did before? Well, it's still the same thing. The A would still be A minor. B would still be half diminished if you're thinking of it as a 4-note chord, or it would be considered, if I'm thinking of it as a 3-note chord, it would be just diminished. Okay, so remember it's 1 flat 3 flat 5. That's kind of the diminished part of it. If I added the 4-note chord, the flatted 7th, that becomes what we call half diminished. Okay, so we have A minor, that's the 6th minor. B half diminished. We have a C. Do you see how this is exactly the same chords that we just played in the key of C, but now I'm just playing it starting on A. Wow, Steve, that sounds all very different. It's in minor. Yeah, it's the same chords. Do you see how it's not kind of the same chords? It's exactly the same chords that we just played in the key of C. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of the A minor. All right, if I'm going to do that, let me take you around one more logic jump, okay? Look at the next page. If I think of those exact same chords, I have not changed any chord, okay? I've not changed any chord. But now I'm thinking of them from the perspective of A major, okay, where A is the major root. Okay, well then it would be 1 is A, but instead of major, it's minor. So it'd be 1 minor, A minor. The relationship of the chords is the same, just their function is changed a little bit. B is still a half diminished, but now instead of here, if I'm thinking about it in C, it would be a 7 half diminished. If I'm thinking about it in the key of relationship with the key of A, it would be a 2 half diminished. Okay, this is important, kids. 1 is minor. If I'm thinking about it from the perspective of A, the 1 becomes minor. The 2, if I'm thinking in minor, becomes a half diminished, not a minor like if I was thinking of it in major. What happens on the 3rd step? Well, the 3rd step is not actually the 3rd, because in the key of A, the 3rd would be a C sharp. So it's actually a flatted 3rd, which is the C, but it's major. So in the key of, in minor keys, you have a 1 minor, a 2 half diminished, and then a flatted 3, but it's major, C major. The 4 chord is a D, but it's not major, it's minor. The 5 chord is not major, it's minor. The 6 in the key of A would be an F sharp, so it's not a 6, it's a flatted 6th, an F, but it's major, so you end up with this flat 6 major. The 7th in the key of A would be a G sharp, but that's not what we have. We have a G natural. So again, we'd have a flatted, but it's a 7, but it's major. G major in the key of A. So do you see what I did there? These are exactly the same chords that we've been playing the entire time. I'm just thinking of them now in the perspective of A, okay? So I end up in a minor key. I end up with 1 minor, 2 half diminished, flat 3 major, 4 minor, 5 minor. I'm going to change that here in a second. Flat 6 major, flat 7 major, and then the 1 minor again. Ooh, okay, so look what happened there. The 1 and the 4 became minor, and the 5 became minor. The 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th are all flatted down a half step, and they're all major. And the 2 ends up being this odd little half diminished. So in minor, if you want a 2, 5, 1, in minor, the 2 is a half diminished, okay? There you go. All right. Whew. Look at middle of page 5, very important line there, I even bolded it. Keep in mind, this is the exact same chord progression that we started out with in C, but we are now thinking of the chords from a different perspective. I know we've only taught that you've looked at them from one perspective. Now I'm showing you, we're kind of going beyond that a little bit now, that you can look at chords from various perspectives. Hey, what's an F major 7th? Well, it depends on where you're looking at it. If I'm in the key of F, it's the 1 chord. If I'm in the key of C, it's the 4 chord. If I'm in the key of A minor, it's the flatted 6 chord. So it depends on what perspective you're looking at it from. All right. Woo. Now, there's one more change that I need to let you know about. Dominance. Fives. The 5, 7. Those are so good at forecasting where we want to go. They can resolve to majors or minors. So we already did a little bit of that, where we had a dominant chord, this dominant 7th, 1, 3, 5, flatted 7th chord resolves equally well to major and minor. So with that in mind, it sounds a little weird, it sounds a little wonky to have... Remember that old Christmas song? Dum 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 da da dum da 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 dum. Flatted 6 da 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 da. That 5 minor, that sounds a little old, sounds a little modal, okay? A little Renaissance. Dun 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 da da dum 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 da da dum da 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 da. So you'll hear that some ways, but you'll also hear, probably more common these days, is you'll hear it played like this. Da dum da 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 dum da da da. F major to an E 7th. Ah, that sounds more normal. That sounds more right in our modern eyes. What did I do there? I substituted the 5, which in the pattern should be minor, but I substituted a dominant 7th, an E 7th. And that works. So with that one little twist in the harmony, that we end up is how chords are framed in minor. Okay, I know it took us about 10 minutes to get there, but that's so in any minor key, typically what you're going to find is the 1 is going to be major, the 2 is going to be a half diminished, or excuse me, 1 is going to be minor, 1 is going to be minor, 2 is going to be half diminished, the flatted 3 is going to be major, maybe even a major 7th, the 4 is going to be minor, the 5 is going to be a dominant 7th with as many ornamentations as you want to throw onto it. The flatted 6 is going to be major, even major 7th maybe. The flatted 7th is going to be major, and then you're going to resolve to minor, to the 1 minor. Woo! There you go. I know we covered a lot of harmonic ground there. It's maybe probably more than you ever wanted to know about music theory and minor, but hopefully I wanted to go through that because I wanted you to kind of see it. I know I may have lost some of you on that, but some of your light bulbs are going to be going. That's why when I'm in the key of A minor, I see E7s. When I'm in the key of C minor, I see G7s, G augmenteds maybe, things like that. That's because in minor, that dominant tends to be on the 5 chord. Okay. Now, let me, with that in mind, let's go back and look at that minor blues one more time, top of page 4. So in A minor, that would be the 1 minor. The 4 would be the D minor on measure 5, then back to the A minor. Then you'd have the flatted 6th. And then you have an E7. That's the dominant 5. There you go. And then back to the minor 1. There you go. All right. So that's the minor blues. Now, of course, there's all kinds of variations of that and all sorts of fun, wonderful things that you can do with it. But those are the 3 types of blues that any guitar player worth their weight on a guitar should know. The 12-bar basic blues, major. The jazz blues, chord progression. And then this minor blues concept. Don't get too lost. I gave you a bunch of theory. I explained the whole thing out. Basically, here's all that you need to know. If you don't want to worry about that, here's all that you need to know about minor blues. The 1 and 4 are minor. The 5 is a dominant 7th. And then you also have a flatted 3, flatted 6, and flatted 7th. Those are all major. Okay, there you go. All right. Hey, I hope you guys have learned something. If you have, we certainly appreciate it. Take a second to subscribe to our channel. And that way we do lessons on Tuesday nights, sometimes even Wednesdays as well. So hopefully that helps you out. If I can do anything to help you out, let me know. I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. We will see you guys next time.